One of the most common requests that I get as a sex coach is help me to have more sex in my marriage. And that's exactly what my client, let's call him Ira, came to me for. And I bet a lot of you can relate to how he was feeling. Whether you're married or single, you've got a relationship or a situationship, many men and women aren't satisfied with the quantity of sex that they're having. So I asked Ira, what would be an ideal frequency of sex for you? And he said in his perfect world, his wife and him would get it on like 1 to 3 times a week. Now, considering that they've only been having sex like once a month for like almost 20 years, that was a pretty tall order. We went to work and naturally they started to see some improvement. And I'm gonna tell you exactly which tools we used to do that. But the really interesting part and the reason I'm making this video, that only happened after he reached his goal. Because once Ira got into the swing of banging his wife once a week like he wanted, he found that he was still not satisfied. And believe it or not, this is something that happens to a lot of men who I've worked with. Because although frequency is the primary complaint that I get, it often isn't the real issue. It's not the quantity of sex that needs to be addressed, it's the quality. And look, men and women, myself included, fall into this trap all the time. Society teaches men especially that from a young age they've got to be always willing and hungry and they want more and more and more sex. And this constant chase can leave men feeling empty. It's like being really starving and instead of eating a meal, you eat like a whole bag of potato chips. You know that kind of like achy feeling that you have after? Like you're stuffed but you're not satisfied? Focusing too much on quantity is exactly the same. And so here we are, quality versus quantity. I'm gonna tell you exactly how to get both in your sex life. Let's go ahead and start with quantity since it's the thing that so many of us get hung up on. So whether you're in a marriage, you're starting a sexual relationship, the primary governing factor of quantity of sex is desire. And no matter what kind of relationship you're in, there are a few things that you can do to either ignite or reignite desire in a woman. Here's quantity tip number 1, get to know her erotic blueprints. If you've never heard of the erotic blueprints, they were developed by my mentor, Jaya, and let me tell you, they're a game changer. I have an entire video series on them, and you should absolutely check that out after this. In a nutshell, the erotic blueprints help you to figure out exactly what turns you and your partner on. Knowing your partner's erotic blueprint is basically a hack to knowing exactly what it takes to get her aroused and in the mood. So once I explained the blueprints to Ira and he compared his and studied his wives, he realized that he was going about initiating sex in the wrong way. He was initiating in his blueprint, not her blueprint. It's like he wasn't speaking her language. So once he shifted to engaging her on her terms, he found that she was actually a lot more interested in having sex a lot more often. In other words, he increased her desire and through doing that, increased the quantity of sex they were having. Also, he figured out ways to enjoy sex in her language. He figured out how to enjoy the erotic blueprints. That brought him more pleasure and made him a better lover as well. Check those videos out at the end. Let's go ahead and move on to quantity tip number 2. Be your own best lover. Look, everyone, when it comes to sex and orgasms, it's a little bit every man and woman and non-binary person is out here for themselves. Ira was living in a constant state of sexual frustration. He was so hyper-focused on getting his wife to just have sex with him more. He wasn't actually taking a moment to consider his own relationship with his own sexuality. A lot of people actually fall into this trap, both men and women, and even sex coaches alike. See, we want to be attractive to our partners or romantic interest so bad that we put all of that energy into them and barely focus on how we and our arousal and our orgasms actually fit into the equation. That kind of behavior is needy. It reeks. The more desperate you are for more sex, the less people want to have sex with you. Since Ira wasn't connected to his own sexuality, he kept trying to get sex from his wife. He wasn't connected to his body. He wasn't connected to his masturbation. He wasn't doing these things consciously. He was seeing his wife as the sole source of erotic freedom, pleasure, and orgasm. And of course, that was putting a lot of pressure on her, which had her feeling like she did not want to have sex with him because, of course not. So I set him up with the process for masturbation that I describe in my course, Come When You Want. He studied that and started using it in his own life. That helped him to take care of his needs, and he no longer approached his wife with that like needy, grabby, icky energy. So if you're interested in my course and my methodology, check the link in the description below. Comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. My last tip when it comes to increasing quantity of sex is number 3, make space. Women and men have some key differences when it comes to arousal, and one of them is that men are pretty much universally better at compartmentalizing, being like, I'm doing this and now we're doing sex. Women's bodies often take a little bit more holistic approach. And obviously this is not all men and not all women, but stick with me for a second and see if you see yourself in this example. Ira's wife generally day to day was just kind of exhausted. That's like how she moved about the world. 2 young kids, she's taking care of them, and a lot of days she just doesn't feel sexual. She kind of feels stressed out and tired. And that means that when Ira is like easily and often in the mood, there's like always one more thing that she's thinking about, like something on her to-do list. For example, in one of our sessions, Ira was telling me about how he initiated sex and his wife was like kind of kissing him back, and then all of a sudden it felt like she just totally shifted, and she told him that she couldn't. She wasn't available because she needed to go get the laundry out of the dryer so that it wouldn't wrinkle. And while that's completely valid, the laundry was gonna wrinkle. Ouch, that hurts. So I asked him a question that totally shifted his perspective. Why don't you ask her earlier in the day what needs to get done so that she can relax and be intimate later tonight? Communication for the win yet again. The thing about women is that activating their sexuality actually has more to do with getting obstacles out of the way than adding fuel to the fire. She doesn't need porn, she needs help with the dishes. People talk about this all the time, but men honestly often don't believe that it's true. It's true. Arousal is our natural state of being. We don't actually have to do anything to get aroused. I guarantee if you take some time to go camping, you clear your head, you take care of your body, you spend some time outside in the sunlight, and you feel safe in your relationship, arousal will occur. It just so happens that we live in worlds where we're constantly stressed out, we're in traffic, we're told we're not doing enough, we need to make more money, we need to show up, we gotta hustle, blah, 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 blah. All of those things get in the way of just experiencing arousal. So get those obstacles out of her way, make her feel safe, desire will come automatically. You don't have to work for it. Anyway, I shared this with him and he implemented it. He learned, and the frequency of their sex increased. Problem solved, right? Wrong, because ultimately Ira's wife wasn't initiating sex, and when they did have it, she kind of seemed like she was just tolerating it, like she was just doing it because he wanted to, not that there was anything in it for her. And of course, Ira's a good guy and a subscriber to this channel, so he doesn't want his wife to just grin and bear it. He wants her to enjoy sex as much as he does. So while they were having more sex than before, it wasn't feeling very good for either of them. And this is where the big aha moment came in. Ira wasn't just after quantity, he actually really wants quality. And remember earlier when I said that quantity feeds off desire? Well, the thing about desire is that it's fleeting. It comes, it goes, you satisfy it, you eat the burger, it goes away for a while, it comes back. I mean, desire can be fun, it can be exciting, but it's actually pretty cheap. I mean, we can feel desire for anyone. We can feel desire for Oscar Isaac. We can feel desire for people who aren't good for us or don't even want us back. It's kind of worthless at the end of the day. I mean, fun, but not really effective at creating a long-term stable sexual relationship. So while quantity feeds on desire, quality feeds on connection. And connection is actually the good shit. Connection is what sustains you. It's what makes you feel fulfilled in a relationship. And the funny thing about fostering connection is that connection actually feeds desire. So you can have them both. I'm gonna go ahead and answer the question that we've been kind of dancing around. Is it quantity or is it quality? Well, when it comes to sex, it's a trick question. Because if you focus on the quality, quantity usually ensues. So now that Ira knew what he actually wanted from his wife, let me share with you how he went about getting it. Quality tip number 1, they carved out time for intimacy. So when Ira came to me, he was focused on the numbers, right? He had this like magical 1 to 3 times every single week, and then I will be satisfied. That was in his head, that was in his mind, and he thought that that is what he needed from his wife. And he was so focused of finding pockets of time to have sex with her, he actually forgot to find time to just be with her. Because intimacy is about more than sex, right? I mean, he was looking at sex to be the only place where they had intimacy. And again, it just doesn't work that way. So I invited them to spend time every day just being together, cuddle, look in each other's eyes, have 20 minutes of cell phone free time together before you go to sleep. Unstructured time that they could use to actually see what their relationship needs to thrive. Next up, we focused on how to fill that time more effectively. Which brings me to quality tip number 2, focus on connection. Connection builds safety, safety builds desire, right? We got all this? And in order to have quality sex, here are the connection points that you really truly need to hit. Couples that have been together for like anything longer than a year tend to get stuck in ruts. Because Ira and his wife have been together for decades, I suggested that they spend time fostering their emotional, intellectual, and spiritual connections by having some fun together, by having some new adventures, some new experiences. I set them up on a series of adventure dates that were designed to reignite the spark between them. They were able to reignite a genuine sense of interest and curiosity in each other through seeing each other with fresh eyes. And again, once that happened, sex naturally follows. And it was more explosive than ever. Which brings me to quality tip number 3, build some new skills. At the end of the day, sex is nothing more than a skill. And no matter how long you've been with your current partner or how long you've been sexually active, how much experience you have, this skill can be developed endlessly. I gave Ira and his wife access to my Epic Lover and Epic Relationship courses, and they were able to learn some new techniques, an exciting way to experience and give pleasure. They started opening themselves up to new experiences in the bedroom, and that allowed them to get to a level of quality sex that had not been achieved before. Oh, I should say, because Ira was my private client, I also gave him access to my Legendary Lover course, where I teach techniques that men need to know in order to give their partners incredible orgasms and sexual experiences. After they'd studied up, Ira and his wife decided to make their bond a priority. They decided that it was worth investing in. That's exactly it. Quality sex requires investment. Whether it's learning to communicate better, to control your ejaculation, to have time that it takes to have this really amazing connection, nothing amazing ever happens without putting in the time and the energy, and yeah, sometimes even the financial investment that is required to get the outcome. And the difference between people who achieve that mind-bending orgasmic sex and the people who don't is really taking the plunge and making the commitment to make it happen. These days, Ira and his wife have sex just about every single week. Sometimes life gets in the way, sometimes they have it 2 or 3 times. It doesn't matter because they're focused on having a regular, constant, ongoing quantity, and they're super committed to doing everything that it takes to have the kind of quality that they both want. We are all worthy of this kind of sexual connection, which, by the way, is why I am here every single week putting on a new video to help you have the best sex of your life. So if you liked this, please hit subscribe and the little bell, and I will see you here next week.